What's up, everybody? Coach Ryan here, Project Fresh, getting our Instagram live up, just waiting for YouTube to go live as well. So we're going to wait just a few seconds here. Hope everybody's doing well today. All right, I believe we're good to go. It's loading up. We'll be good. Let's get it moving here. Awesome. All right, yeah. Cool. So we're dialed in. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. We got MLK Junior Day today. So for those that have the holiday off, hope it goes well. The nature of our business is we're on where others are off. So over the last 4 days, I've been 3 days on, 1 day off. My wife has been 3 days off, 1 day on. So the nature of what we do as wellness and fitness coaches. So hopefully you guys had a great weekend. We're going to do a little mini series starting today. Today's focus is going to be, well, the mini series is going to be called the essentials. There are certain things that we just can't skip on the context of averages. There's going to be a little bit there that I'll note as far as caveats, but in general, certain things that are absolutely essential are going to be a part of this little mini series that we do as we start to get deeper into the start of our year here. We're already into our third full week of January, the first year of the month. I'm sure before we know it, we'll be talking about February here in a couple Saturdays, because that's literally how close or how far, if you will, February is to this point. So yeah, as far as sleep goes, I'm just going to kind of run through a few different things that you'll find. We've talked about sleep before, and then on the back end, I'll throw in a few bonuses, which I've mentioned in the past, some different resources that we generally will recommend to our client base. But there is no question as to how essential sleep is for your health and wellness. And I'm sure we all know that as far as the acronym HALT, when you're feeling a certain kind of way, getting a little testy with your relationships, your patience, your anger, your anxiety, whatever emotions might be rearing up and making you difficult to deal with. This was me on Thursday for my wife, where I excused myself and went to bed a little earlier than normal. I was the acronym is HALT, and I was very much the T, tired, in HALT. And so in that context, we all know what sleep deprivation, I think mostly everybody knows what sleep deprivation looks like. So typical recommendations on average, I've seen across the board recommendations between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. Doing anything less than that, if you can sustain it, is either genetically you can, where I've run into a few people who are like that. Kobe is one of those examples. Before we lost him, before he passed, he was one to be good on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Funny story, my dad has a friend who was one of my coaches in elementary, played professional football. He would say that he would get by with 4 hours of sleep as well. So there are those out there who don't necessarily need it for whatever reason, but on average, the 7 to 9 is usually a good window. Also, it's not just about the hours, but it's also about the consistency of your schedule when you sleep. I often encourage my clients to say to myself that it all depends on if you want to get to bed or wake up at a certain time, then it's dependent upon when you go to bed, right? So a lot of us want to be up at 6 or 5 or whatever it is. It's like, okay, you're doing 7 hours, 6 o'clock means 11 at the latest, preferably 10. I've heard, and I actually need to look at the research on this, but the key period or the best time for us to get the most sleep is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Like, that is absolutely essential time for sleep. If you miss that window, you're not going to get the same quality. I need to actually find out if there's some studies on that. But ultimately, sleep schedule is important to create or provide better regulation of sleep. Usually we'll hear about how we regulate our caffeine. Alcohol is one of those, as well as marijuana. They may help you sleep, but they definitely won't improve sleep quality. So you might be able to fall asleep better, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have better sleep. Heavy metals and light exposure are some other ones to manage and regulate. Exercise is very important. If you can boost your serotonin, which you can also get from light exposure, serotonin cycles with melatonin. And then I don't know what that is. I'm going to skip that. But there's a lot of benefits to it: physical, mental, cognitive function, immune function. Immunity is huge. We've got RSV, flu, COVID, all these other sicknesses that are going on right now. And it is absolutely imperative, not only in managing stress, but also how you sleep. That can regulate your immune system, especially if you're very stressed and your adrenals are tapped out. It's very important to make sure you utilize sleep to help you with your immunity. That's a big one right now, especially in the wintertime. Sickness is on rampage. People are still getting COVID. And still, obviously, we've had flu, and people are dealing with this other one, RSV, as well. So, very important. Consequences of poor sleep, we generally know. And the reason why I thought about sleep today is because of what we were talking about last week, coming off the 5-day reset, getting into this first month. We'll have some more into that going into February when that becomes available again for us. Fat gain and obesity is more likely, or let's say it this way, your risk is higher if your sleep is poor. Conversely, or inversely, I guess, is that if your sleep is better, it's more likely or lesser risk you have a better chance at maintaining or managing your fat, especially fat around the midsection. So if you're wondering why you can't shave that fat around the midsection, I would encourage you to explore what your sleep is like. It also impacts diabetes and impaired glucose tolerance. These are based on different studies for this list that I have. Not all inclusive, but some different findings. Cardiovascular disease, so cardiopulmonary, lungs, and hypertension are some areas that could be impacted. As I mentioned before, anxiety and stress. Depression is one. You might be more likely to utilize alcohol more. And again, if you're using alcohol, that can impact sleep, and perhaps that could turn into a cycle. Not saying this is the case for everything. What's really big about sleep is that's the time your body recovers. So if you're dealing with pain and not getting enough sleep, that pain might turn into chronic pain, meaning ongoing, consistent, pain. And then, of course, when we're more sleepy, less attentive, less focused, or we have less ability to focus, it can increase risk of physical accidents as well. So some different things of consequences. Ultimately, I think what's really important for me right now is the habits surrounding sleep. So other habits. For me, it's always coming off of a long day and wanting to, quote, unwind. We've seen people unwind TV shows, in movies. We've seen people unwind alcohol. And we're not talking all bad things. People reading a book before they go to sleep. There's all of the different unwind options, right? Social media is usually mine. So for me, staying off my phone, especially by 8, like that 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. window, has been a chronic or a regular habit for me. And I know if I stay off my phone, I'm more likely to get to bed at a reasonable time and have better sleep. There's a lot of things about blue lights. And if you're into the crowd of computer or performance around the computer, where did those go? Oh, my missus might have those right now. The blue light glasses, here they are. No, she does not have them. I have them. They're just dusty. Anyway, blue light glasses are options. You might be able to see that blue light reflection on there. If you guys can see that on the camera, my screen is reflecting it, the screens I'm looking at. So that's something that a lot of people get into and utilize for kind of managing serotonin and managing the light, that spectrum and its impact on the eyes and the brain. I'll go ahead and wear these for the rest of the post. Go ahead and look a little smarter, perhaps. But in that context, that's an area as well. But ultimately, I think getting back to what I was talking about for myself personally, usually being on social media is more of a detriment than anything. I do find myself enjoying and communicating with the network that we do. We'll see if we keep TikTok or not here. It popped back on after a short outage over the weekend. Depending on how that goes with that company, will determine whether we keep it or not. We do have the profile for our business on there. Don't post enough, but if it remains in the current ownership, we'll probably keep it. If it moves to another ownership, we may or may not. But ultimately, the bottom line here is for me, that's an area where I know I'll be on if I'm not, and I'll be off if I am. Okay. So, what I usually like to recommend, as I said before, when you select that time that you want to get up, and maybe there are those of you who are ambitious. I know some people my age that get up at 3:34 because they can start their day ahead of everybody else while everybody else is sleeping. That high performance mindset. That means you're probably going to bed at 8 at the latest, right? So you can get those 7 hours if you're doing a 3 or a 3:30 wake up call. For those that might want to do more of the 5-6 range, get to the gym and work out before your day. That means we're getting up around 9 or going to bed around 9 or 10. If you really want to optimize sleep, 24 minus 9 is 13, right? So that means you've got 13 hours. And if you're working a regular 9 to 5, that means you've got 5 hours for everything else, right? Leisure, exercise, food and food prep. If you've got significant, if you've got a spouse, you've got kids, and you've got other extracurricular activities in addition, now you're really limiting your time. You have to be very efficient with that schedule, right? So that's where it gets into it. Obviously, if you've got kids, that's one of the challenges. If you've got a four-legged puppy like us, we're up at 5:30 usually, or between 5 and 6 every morning. This morning was 5:30 for us with the puppy. So there's all those factors too. So setting the time is important. And then sleep habits, which I think is a good time to go and bring in one that I had mentioned before. This gentleman, Sean Stevenson. This is a great resource. I've mentioned this a couple of times in the past. Essential strategies for sleeping smarter. And he goes through his story. He had quite a unique story on his perspective. He was working out and eating. He wasn't seeing results. He was dealing with some, I think, degenerative hip issues or something along the lines, either hips or low back. And talked about how sleep was all of the difference for him. So this is a great one. 21 different things you consider, or we've heard it said strategies or sleep hygiene, if you will. This is one, and it's got some wear and tear on it. We've got it all marked up here, all of the different highlighted stuff. So caffeine curfew, for example, I mentioned that earlier. That's one space in place. And then for our partnership with Shaklee, we've got a couple solutions. I mentioned serotonin cycling with melatonin. A lot of times you don't need any more than 5 milligrams of melatonin, even 2 you could potentially get away with. More than that is not necessary. You're overloading your system. You can make yourself dependent upon what you're taking versus allowing the body to produce its own. Again, serotonin cycles with melatonin. I think I learned that first from Sean Stevenson, if I'm not mistaken, either him or maybe Lewis Howes was talking about it with one of the interviews he did with Sean Stevenson or one of his other interviews, whatever it was. But ultimately, I would encourage you to do a sleep aid that doesn't have melatonin in it. If you absolutely need it, we've got another option. But this one is a part of our multitaskers line, Rest and Rewind. It's not only helping you address sleep, but it's also got some anti-aging, which is very specifically some polyphenols, which have been tested and proven multiple times over to help with the cellular regeneration. And instead of anti-aging, we're going with aging well. And so I hope that they start to use that language more, but assisting you with aging well. And now you can get a good night's sleep that looks good on you. And so the sleep, this is a lemon flavor, lemon balm. It's got magnesium in it for those that know the power of magnesium. This is a great one. This is magnesium sulfate. There's some other forms of magnesium that have been proven to do well magnesium, threonate, I believe. Common form is magnesium oxide. Let's see, magnesium L-threonate. Yeah, that's the one I've seen pop up a number of times. Like I said, this one's great. These are good price range, but ultimately those are just a few extras that we generally will start with. The melatonin version that we have is called Dream Serene, and that does really well for our sleep when we need it to, especially for those shorter windows of time where we know, hey, it's just not gonna schedule's not gonna allow for those 7 hours, and maybe it's 5. Doing a sleep aid, you get more out of that time than you would if you didn't utilize those. So, all that being said, essentials series here, starting off with sleep. I'll just say this too. Again, I want to really emphasize, highlight. We're going to probably use this video later, so for the context of us repurposing that this material, emphasis here. It is very absolutely important that you get the right amount of sleep if you are trying to build muscle tissue and you're trying to burn fat. Either or both. Build the muscle to burn the fat is what I have my clients focus on. Don't focus on losing, focus on gaining. Gain muscle, gain strength, improve your VO2 max. When you do that, sleep is absolutely paramount. Trying to do that, trying to hit personal best and increase your weight resistance when you exercise, trying to push yourself harder when you do cardiovascular training is dependent on your ability to recover. When you sleep, you recover your mind and you recover your body. The muscle tissue is going to have a harder time repairing itself. If you're not sleeping well, the mind is going to have a harder time retaining information. I remember being sleep deprived through college and not doing well on tests because I could just not recall anything. And it was because I was totally sleep deprived. I remember one time for physics, I think this was my freshman year, maybe my sophomore year, where I had 2 jobs. I worked my first job after classes until about 7 or 8 at night, and then I went to my second job and went until 3 a.m. in the morning. And I had a physics exam at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and I think I studied okay for the test, but most of the material, it was terrible experience. It was awful. So whatever it is that you need your mind to do or work for, you sleep is also paramount as well. So that's why we're starting with this one as essentials, because it's the baseline or foundation for the hard work that you'll be putting in with the strength training, with the exercise, the hard work that you'll be putting in with the food. And why erase all of that hard work with poor sleep? Why would you do that to yourself, right? Emotionally, mentally, physiologically, it just hits you in all different ways. So really encourage you guys on that today. Appreciate the time. Like I said, we'll put this together, a little bit more content. You need some more assistance with the sleep schedule, go ahead and drop sleep in the comments today, sleep, and we'll get in touch with you. Hope you guys have a great week today. Great week for the rest of the week, starting with today. And we'll see you all next time, our Monday Lunch Live, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 11 East Pacific, so West Coast, 2 p.m. on the East Coast. And for all of our international people checking in with us, really appreciate you guys rocking with us as well. So Ryan Sanders with Project Fresh. Hope you guys have yourself